Welcome to U2 Spain, broadcasting almost live on YouTube and Facebook. On this week's show, I'm going to be talking about the Padrón with our visa and residency specialist and best mate, Chris from Upsticks. It's a pre-recorded show today, which is why it's almost live, but you can still type in your comments and have discussions on the live chat. So start doing that right now. If you're watching the video back afterwards, then put your questions and comments below, because you are a part of this too. You are most welcome to U2 Spain. Well, that's the groovy theme tune, and speaking of groovy, let's welcome our best mate, Chris from Upsticks. Hola, matey.
How are we doing?
Very, very good. We've just done your show a few minutes ago. That's really, really strange. So now we're swapping roles.
Yes, yeah. It was fun, though. It's fun. We've got to keep, even though it's summer, we've got to keep getting it out there, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good. I'm finding that two of my shows in August are pre-recorded, so this is the first, and next week I have on John from Eco Vida Homes. That's a pre-recorded one as well, but it was actually pre-recorded in your office, so everything's coming from Upsticks at the moment. Yeah, so good. Yeah, a recording studio as well. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask, as usual, have you got any shout outs?
Well, to all our guys who've got visas, but by the time this goes live, there may be a few more. Who knows? Yeah. So we're about a week behind now. It's Thursday the 7th when we're recording this, but this will go out on the 9th. That's going to be, it should say at the top of my screen, the 16th, Saturday the 16th of August. It is now for you people watching. So I'm going to say a quick virtual hello to everyone joining us on the live chat. Give us a wave, even though we can't see it now. Say hello, make yourselves known. You can still go live on the live chat while this is going out, because it goes out as what's called a premiere. So the live chat still works for you. But if you're not on live, put your comments in the comments below and put any questions in there. We can respond to that afterwards. So let's get straight on with our main feature, the Padrón. Now, I think by now, when this show goes out, we'll have both done videos at some point in the last week. You'll have been chatting about the Padrón on your live show, possibly, or on a video, and I'll have made a midweek video about it on Wednesday to give everyone the basics. So today's like a part 3 in the series, if you like, and we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty and the frequently asked questions from viewers that I've been picking up over the last few days. So, Chris, let's start with the basics for those who've not watched parts 1 and 2 yet. What is the Padrón? Padrón, it's not a pepper.
No, but it is as well, yeah.
So the Padrón is basically, it's a registration with the town hall. So in the UK, it's the equivalent of the council register. It's the electoral roll.
Electoral roll, that's it.
That's it. I always struggle with the English terminology. So it's like an electoral roll, because you would have to be on it to actually vote in your local elections. But it's so much more than that. It also serves as your proof of address here in Spain for all administrative bodies. It's something that is essential for most things that you do. Absolutely essential, and it's kind of the only one. It's the official proof of address. Some people get confused between the Padrón and the Padrón certificate, so just explain the difference. Basically, the Padrón, you have to provide a series of documents to go to your town hall. They normally have a specific table, which is for the attention of the citizens of the town. And once you present your documents, which would be your personal proof of who you are, the proof of where you're living, whether that's a rental contract. I'm not jumping ahead here, am I? You are. I'm going to ask you this question later on. So we'll finish that question later on. We'll finish that question later on. Basically, the difference between actually being registered on the Padrón and the Padrón certificate is that if you're registered, okay, you are basically on a internal register at the town hall, which says that you're actually there and you're living in a place. And the certificate is the proof of that registration. The biggest confusion we get is people think they have to keep renewing the certificate to continue being registered, which isn't actually true until certain points in your residency. Yes, and we'll get to that point later. That's another question. I've got them nicely lined up. We'll explain them all as we go along. So when do you need to be on the Padrón? As soon as possible, once you've moved to Spain and you are applying for either your TIE card or residency, it's very important to know that you don't have to be a resident to be on the Padrón. In fact, the Padrón certificate, in some circumstances, especially for EU citizens or people who are applying off the back of someone else's residency on a third country national platform within Spain, very important that it's within Spain, it's actually part of the registration process. So you don't have to be a resident to get on the Padrón. In fact, that in some circumstances that comes, most circumstances it would come before you get your residency.
That's a bit confusing because everybody says if you're not a resident, you can't be on the Padrón.
Yeah, so if you're not a resident and you only come on holiday, you own a property, you definitely shouldn't be on the Padrón. If you are in the process of getting your residency or registering a visa here in Spain, then it's a good idea. So only if your intention is to stay in Spain and you're in that administrative process of getting yourself registered on whatever platform it is, then it's a good idea to be on the Padrón.
Excellent. And I did see something. I actually asked, can you be on the Padrón if you're a non-resident? And the AI actually came up with, yes, you can be on the Padrón if you're a non-resident. And it quoted from some particular lawyer's website, but it was kind of misquoting it. So yeah, be careful when you're doing searches on the internet. You Google search and it comes up with the AI explanation first, because sometimes they take something out of context from a website and it may not be the truth for the whole subject.
Yeah. The AI is very good in some respects, but other respects it's very, very lazy. It doesn't really care what it throws at you as long as it's answering your question, and sometimes it'll get answers from unqualified sources as well.
This is very true. So you have to do a bit of your own searching. It doesn't read between the lines.
No. So just one example would be if you're an EU citizen and an EU family member, and the EU citizen and the EU family member have the right to get the residency in Spain. The EU citizen first, family member then has to apply for their permission. To apply for that permission, you would need to be on the Padrón with your spouse and have a specific certificate to prove that.
As I always say, there's a lot of it depends about this. There you go. My next question was going to be, when do you need to be on it? I think we may have answered that one already.
Yeah, well, as soon as possible, but not before you decide to move here permanently.
By the way, viewers, a little bit to drop in here. Don't forget to check out Chris's Upsticks website and the YouTube channel. The links are in the video description below, and I usually put it as the top comment as well. I usually pin the top comment on there, and it says Upsticks on there, and there are lots of articles and videos to help you out. And of course there's the live update every Thursday evening at 6 o'clock Spanish time, and that's lots of fun as well as being informative, especially when I'm on it, which I was last week.
Regular once a month on it now.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And of course, don't forget, normally on the corner of our screen, and it's not there yet, so let's put it up now, the QR code for Buy Me a Coffee. There it is in the top right hand corner. So hover over that, and if you're on your phone and watching on your phone, you can't hover your phone over it, so you can find it in the super link in the video description below as well. So if you've learnt something of value today or you've been entertained, then use that link to donate a cup of coffee or 3 or 5, whatever you think today's show is worth to you. Then the electricity keeps working and we all keep on smiling. I'm going to leave that up there now as we continue. And so my next question was, we were talking about renewing the Padrón. So do you need to renew the Padrón? And of course, we've got the difference between the listing and the certificate here. That's the important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so you've got your listing or your registration where you've been and registered on the Padrón. We've had it before where people have said to us, well, they've been and actually registered and they've got their proof that they registered, and then they said, well, no one sent me the certificate. It's because you have to request the certificate once you are registered. Yeah, so, but sometimes this is the confusing thing. Some town halls will register you there on the spot. That's it. Thank you very much. Have your certificate. Other town halls can take 2, 3, and in some cases like Bellet, even 4 months to have you registered on the Padrón. So that's a confusing thing. In terms of renewing your registration, if you're a non-EU citizen, and that includes British people within the withdrawal agreement as well, you have to go to the town hall and let them know every 2 years okay, that you're still living at the same address, or if you've changed your address, and confirm your registration, which reminds me, I think it's nearly my turn as well now.
I'm a bit worried now because we've been here for 4.5 years and Liz hasn't done anything about hers, but she is on a joint Padrón with me. So has that made a difference?
That should make a difference because with you being an EU citizen, you have to go every 5 years.
Aha.
And she is here under permission. You have given her permission through your status to have residency in Spain. Okay, so I don't think you'll have a problem because you are here 5 years. I don't think they kick Liz off without you. But for anybody who doesn't live here in an EU platform, then definitely it's every 2 years.
Do they get automatically knocked off if you don't actually go and ask?
Not always. No, people have forgotten. It's a town hall. Really, they have to actually make a physical, shall we say, registration that you're no longer there. And normally, to be fair, the town halls do send notifications out to say, "Oi, by the way, you've got until this date just to renew your registration with us." And what we have seen is this used to happen through postal letters, and now we've seen it come through via email or even on the digital platform as well if you've got a digital certificate. So normally you get some form of notification from them to say your registration is running out.
So I think it's worth me just popping down and asking them just to make sure. So anything else we need to know about that? Renewing it? Oh, renewing the certificate. Yeah, let's get rid of the confusion about this.
Yeah, so with the renewing the certificate, now if you need to prove your address in Spain, maybe that is because you're registering a visa, maybe it's because you're buying a vehicle, maybe you are registering a child in school, all these maybe you're registering with Social Security, all these circumstances, you need proof of your address. The proof of your address is a Padrón certificate, which is actually a few different types of certificates you can get. But a Padrón certificate proves your address. Now, this has a validity of 90 days, but that's just the certificate. It doesn't mean after 90 days you have to go and re-register. It means if you need to use that certificate as proof of address against any agency, then as long as it's dated within 90 days, which a lot of people will be familiar with a non-lucrative visa, because things like medical certificates, marriage certificates, all have a 90-day validity, then that is fine. The day it goes into day 91, then it means you'd have to go back to the town hall and get an updated certificate, which should have exactly the same details on it, be recently dated, and give you a more validity on it.
Absolutely. And you can actually get them online now. You certainly can at our town hall.
Yep. If you've got a digital certificate, you can from ours as well. Most town halls have what they call a sede electrónica, which is the electronic platform. And if you access that using a digital certificate, they'll actually send you a Padrón, which comes with either a QR code or a CSV code, which proves that it's essentially an original document. It doesn't matter how many times you print it out.
Brilliant. And now I believe you've just answered the next question, was under what circumstances would you need the certificate? You gave a list of various different circumstances. It's when you need to prove your address officially, isn't it?
Yeah, and or for residency applications, in some circumstances, like EU family members, like we would have done for you, is to prove that you live together.
Nice one. So we come to the question that you were answering earlier on. What documents do you need to get one? And this is very much an it depends, because I've seen so many people talking about what they needed to bring to their town hall to get their on the Padrón, and my circumstances, it was really quite weird. We had to get my landlord's, this is for a rental property, obviously, my landlord's DNI, which is like the equivalent of the TIE or NIE, and proof that he'd paid the tax on the property as well. We had to get that document. There was loads that we needed to get from the landlord himself, even though I'm sure the town hall probably had all that information anyway. And there were one or two other things, and I can't remember what they were now, but they were slightly unusual compared to what other people had said they needed to have.
Just as we were talking there's something pops into my head about not jumping on the Padrón for a residency application. There's just one circumstance. If you are applying for a reunification visa and the person you're reunifying is outside of Spain, and we don't really manage this visa platform, but I have seen this through other colleagues of ours. The person you are bringing can't be living in Spain because you're applying from them from abroad. So if they've been to visit you, don't put them on the Padrón. Right? If they leave. So if you've got a residency application within Spain, you qualify in any of the third country national platform visas to apply in Spain, like the EU family members, or like arraigo or something like that, then being on the Padrón is the proof that you in the family unit. But if the person is coming from outside of Spain, it's a good idea if they're not on it, because they will then say, well, hey a minute, how come you're applying through a consulate if the person's on the Padrón in Spain? Very important. So don't mistakenly, if you're going for residency, whoever's doing it with you should advise you yes or no, but don't just jump on the Padrón without advice if you're applying for somebody from outside of Spain.
Very, very good point. What are the documents that you've noticed that people have needed for theirs?
You've got like 3 different circumstances. You've got like people who own, people who rent, and the odd circumstances. Yeah, which you'll put in the odd, it depends unit. So you've got people who own a property. We have to go with proof of ownership, which would be the deeds of the property. We always think it's a good idea to either take a utility bill or an IBI bill or something like that for the property as well. And also, obviously, you'd have to take your own personal documents, whether that's a passport, if you haven't got an NIE number yet, your passport and NIE, or your passport and residency. As we know, you don't have to be a resident to jump on. Now, one thing about people who own, if you own a property, say, for example, you own a property, but there's going to be yourself and your wife doesn't figure, or your husband doesn't figure, or your partner, your spouse doesn't figure on the deeds, it would be a good idea then to bring a marriage certificate along and prove to the civil servant, whoever you're dealing with, to prove to them that they have the right to register at that address as well. Extreme circumstances, don't forget you're dealing with people behind a desk, and it's up to them what they ask you for and what they decide. So they want, again, a lot of people ask me, does the marriage certificate for Padrón application has to be dated within the last 90 days and apostilled? Look, for consulates, we know it definitely does. For the subdelegation, we know it does. I've seen people get away with it in a town hall, but it's the best advice to have a recently dated marriage certificate, because if they looked at administrative law, they'd say, oh, actually this is too old. So, but a lot of the times, and we've seen people actually register on with their spouses without even having that. But it's a good idea if your spouse isn't on the deeds to go with further proof of the relationship.
Brilliant. Anything else that you need? And
then if you've got a rental contract, so that's the people who own. For a rental contract, you definitely need to take your rental contract. Make sure that it's not a short-term contract. Most of the time nowadays, they will request the contract is written under the LOI, the long-term rental laws. Also, you would need proof of documentation, as you mentioned, of the person who owns the property. They're renting it to you. Okay, so they do this a lot because of like ocupas and stuff like that, people who break in, and they can easily come up with personal falsified documents, but they're never going to be having a proper copy of the DNA of the person or TIE of the person who's renting the property. So you're definitely going to need the rental contract, the copy of the ID of the person who's actually renting that property to you, and then again the IBI or a utility bill. Normally the town hall can tell if the IBI has been paid on it, but then if you've got somewhere like in Malaga, where it's actually the patronato which control a lot of the tax payments on the behalf of the town hall itself can't jump on the patronato's tax system, so you need to get a receipt from them to prove it's been paid. So it's always a good idea, and anybody who's renting your apartment who wouldn't provide you with proof that the tax is up to date is probably not going to be the best landlord anyway.
So that's if you rent, and secondly if you buy, and what was the other one? Unusual circumstances.
So oddball circumstances. So one person owns the house and maybe granddad or grandma are coming to live, or you've got your sister-in-law is going to come and live here for 2 years or something like that. Okay, or you're getting a house for free. Could you imagine getting a house for free given to you, so there's no rental contract? Okay. A lot of the time in those circumstances, the person who owns the property would have to go, say, for example, in the circumstance of someone who owned the property. So I own a property and I want somebody to come and live with me, but they're not my spouse or my child. Then sometimes you have to go and sign something that's called a declaración responsable. So there's no proof that this person there's no contract because I'm just letting them live with me. We go to the town hall now, have a specific form you have to fill out, but you're basically declaring the responsibility for that person. Okay, so every town hall is slightly different to the paperwork they require. They're definitely going to require the interested party's personal documentation, but as the person who owns the property, letting that person live there, if there's no rental contract because you live there as well, you would definitely have to sign what is declarazione responsabile.
Brilliant. That's so good to know.
And there is a type of contract which you can sign if you are living in a house for free, okay, which basically would mean that you declare to the town hall that, look, this person, it's very similar to the Declarazione Responsabile, but it's very similar where you sign a contract for somebody to say, I'm letting them live in my house for free, basically. Similar to a rental contract, but doesn't quite fall under the rental law because you've actually given this house to somebody for free, but it's you basically declaring that you take responsibility that they're going to actually live there.
Yeah. I've heard some people have come over when they need an address to get a residency and they've stayed with a friend, for example, in their house. They just need that letter to say, yep, that's okay, they're living with me here.
Yeah, we've actually had it before. I mean, we're talking about some braces here. I've had it before where we had a client who rocked up with a Padrón certificate from deepest, darkest Almeria, and I said, well, where on earth did you get that from? My mate just walked with me, and they said he lives with me. I'll sign this piece of paper here. Yeah, he lives with me. There you go. But, job done. Another one registered. Woohoo! But so it's not always as drastic as we seem. But if you do get somebody a bit awkward, or maybe it's the wrong time of year, like we're in August now, and in theory, every work day the town hall's open, but who knows who you're going to get behind the desk? Because everybody who's anybody's on holiday.
Yeah. Brilliant. So we'll move on to the next question in a minute. But before we continue, here's a quick plug for some other friends of ours who do the best currency exchange and the delightful company I recommend. They specialise in safe, fully insured transfers of your cash for property purchase or moving to a new country, but they can also help you with any transfer amount, like your monthly pension, for example, once you're over here. So to get the best service, use the link below to Smart Currency Exchange. And if you use that link, which is in the comments as well as the video description, you'll get a free account and free advice and your own very lovely personal broker. And there's no obligation. Plus, you'll actually be helping you to Spain as well at no extra cost to you. And as we always say, it is a win-win-win with a cherry on top. There you go. Let's get back to the Padrón. Do you know what? I saw somebody on the Facebook, that's the Facebook, because there's only one. They said somebody was calling it the MPAD. Never seen that before. It's always the Padrón, but MPAD for Empadronamiento. Never heard of it.
That's cool. MPAD.
Yeah. It's the MPAD, man. Get on your MPAD.
Yeah, get on your MPAD, man. Get on your MPAD. I'm going to adopt that now. We're going to steal that and turn it into a U2 Spain saying. You know what I mean?
A thing.
MPAD.
Yeah, we are the MPAD crew, man. Don't know if you can do that anymore. That's probably a 90s thing. Yeah, I can't get the noise. I know people who can do that. You get that click kind of sound, but don't know what you do.
I don't know. Bump my head or something, but MPAD. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we'll do an MPAD.
Yeah, you've got notepads. Now all we need is an MPAD.
Oh, that's what's going on my next notepad. MPAD.
It's the MPAD.
I've only got 100 to get rid of now before we have the MPADs.
Yeah, and we can be the M people with their MPADs.
Yeah, MPADs with our own pads.
Brilliant. So back to the sensible questions.
I'll tell you what, we did invent stage 1 and stage 2, and everybody talks about stage 1 and stage 2 now because it's the easiest way to describe stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And that's it. That was just stage 1 and stage 2, and now I have phone calls of people say, right, and stage 2, and I'm like, you watch us on YouTube, don't you? They're like, yeah. I'm like, cool.
We are the stage 2 crew. So my question I've got, the next one is, what's the connection with residency? And you've talked about needing it to get residency. Do you always need it to get residency?
Oh, it's Jane listening.
Hello, Jane. You in there?
You're listening, because if she's listening, I'm supposed to say yes. But if she's not, I can say not always.
It depends.
It depends. Now, it's your proof of address. So if we look at the basics, so when you get residency, we're talking about stage 1, stage 2. EU citizens go immediately to stage 2 because they have permission to be in Spain. You go then to the comisaria to register your residency, and you have to prove your healthcare, your means to live, and where you're living. Now, depending on the comisaria you go to, I'd say a good 75% will say, well, to prove where you're living, we need to see your Padrón certificate. But then other places, because the registration has to be done within a certain time, will allow you to register without it or with other forms of proof like, look, I need to register within the 90 days, albeit I'm a EU citizen and no one's kicking me out. That's still what I want to do. And I've got the solicitud, the Padrón, which has happened to us in Vélez Málaga before, and it's not going to come out for 4 months. Would you accept the fact that I've got a rental contract and I've requested it? And they've said yes. All right? Because it's purely down to the person behind the desk whether they want to accept that or not. In terms of people who are stage 2 visas, so this means you've got your permission for residency, not because you're EU, because you've got it in your passport. On most provinces which have a lot of movement, like Malaga City, Alicante City, are a lot more lenient for the first time registration of not having a Padrón and putting the address down, which you've put on your application forms. Other less busy, is that even good English? Probably not.
Yeah, I'll do.
That'll do. Less busy, not as busy. Provinces Granada, Almeria. Almeria's busy, but they request that you have a Padrón certificate to prove on a first-time registration. In fact, Almeria is a 50-50, but yeah, belts and braces. If you can get a Padrón before any appointment at the police station, it's definitely a good idea. If you can't, then speak to whoever's helping you with your residency, and they'll give you the best advice as whether, don't worry about it, it's Malaga, or actually, could you just bring this?
Brilliant. My next question was, do you always need to be on the Padrón?
It's a good idea if you're in Spain. It's a great idea. Apart from the fact that there are other benefits, like for example, us being on the Padrón, we get really cheap paddle courts. Okay, we've started now. Kids are older. We've started playing a lot more paddle as a family, which is quite terrible because both Lara and Raul have classes, and I still beat them. So I want to know what they did in the classes. Really, I think they're in a tapas bar the road. They didn't really go, but which is dangerous. They shouldn't put tapas bars next to paddle courts, but we get them for cheap because we're on the Padrón. Classes for your children, camps for your children in the summer. You get them preference if you're registered in a town hall. Different events, different activities. You can get things, aside from the residency aspect of it, your town benefits from you being on the town hall, on the Padrón, and you quite possibly could get cheaper stuff.
Yeah, that's why they do it, isn't it? To get as many people on there as possible, because they get money from the government, is it? Per head?
Yeah, per head, per population. And the more that you push your population up, it goes into tiers. Then you'll receive more funds, or you're going to a greater funding tier. And I think also listening to our mayor when he was talking about, I don't know the ins and outs of the town hall, but just reading between the lines, he comes here and does talks a lot of the time. And when they were talking about getting the new road actually finally in Alarin open, the dual carriageway, it was so important that everybody's registered on the Padrón, because he can then go to Madrid and go, I've got 54,000 citizens and one road in. Apart from the traffic that's going past, I need that road. And it gives any politician leverage to try and help to expand things in your town.
Brilliant. And this next question, we've definitely answered it. What if you've got a house here, but you're not resident?
Don't sign on the Padrón.
That was a question that I saw in one of the Facebook groups. I've got a house, and the town hall apparently were insisting they be on the Padrón. Right.
This is what's happened a lot, and I can tell you now, in a circumstance where it's cost one of our clients an awful lot of money, talking in the realms of 3,000 or 4,000 euros, because they were signed on the Padrón, okay, before they came to live here, and then they came to live here, never lived here, did their non-residence tax, got a visa, okay, brought their vehicle here, went to present the documents to the customs to say, hey, I'm here, living, Padrón certificate. Oh, hang a minute, sir, you've been living here for a year. No, I haven't. I just want to sign on because the town hall told me to. Well, as far as we're concerned, that's a good excuse to not let you waive the tax.
Oh dear.
And then they put it in the ground and say, we're not waiving the tax. As far as we're concerned, you're on the census, And this isn't for change of residency. It doesn't matter if you're showing your UTIE card, your visa, whatever. Customs is the tax office. If you've signed on the Padrón before and you've stayed over the allowed limit to waive tax for change for goods coming from a foreign country as personal items, then you'll be charged the tax.
Yeah. And if the hacienda get a hold of you, and they could be saying, yes, if this is your primary residency, then they could backdate you for tax.
Yeah, there's that as well. I mean, it's always a grey area. Hang on a minute, I was on the Padrón, but I wasn't really here. It's, again, going back to people who have not the withdrawal agreement, people who maybe have been to-ing and fro-ing, then going to permanent and maybe been out for a year, but haven't really mentioned it, not signed off, then come back and got their permanent card. Tax office going, as far as we're concerned, that you've been here the whole time.
Yes. So be on it, but don't be on it if you're not resident.
Yeah.
There you go. Can you be on it if you're living in a caravan park? That's an interesting one.
On most circumstances nowadays, yes. It depends on the park owners. They have to write you permission to say you're living there, and a lot of the parks have permanent agreements for people to stay there all year round, and some parks don't. So
some parks say you can only stay there for like 10 months a year or something like that.
Yeah, so you've got to be vigilant if you are moving over that you can actually get a Padrón if you're on one of the parks. But many people live happily on parks, and you've just got to make sure you can register on it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Bambi and Jojo, we've both had them on our program. They can sell you a mobile home, and they know the parks, I'm sure, where you can get on the Padrón. So watch those videos as well. And what about if you're living in a van? Because I know some people have said, I don't know where we want to live yet, but we're coming over in a camper van and we want to tour around for a bit while we get our residency. And
not really. You would need some. I did a video about this. A whole video about this, so I'll send you the link for it. But yeah, it's very difficult. You probably would need at that point to go back to what we said about my friend, you're living with a friend, and hope that they don't mind you signing on at their place if you need a Padrón to do any administrative operation, because you don't have a fixed abode. It's on 4 wheels, so unless you're parking out a van somewhere and living inside, I very much doubt that you'd be able to ever register on the Padrón.
Yeah. No, I just thought of a circumstance that's a bit odd, but if you're living in a van on land where you're having a house built, I suppose it depends on whether that address is registered as being owned by you.
It was urbanizable, right? So you got there's loads of classifications of land around Spain, but you generally have these 2 big ones. You'll always hear when you're buying a property, you'll hear this as well. You'll hear it's urbanizable or it's rústico. Rústico means that you can go, you can't really build on it, or you can only use the existing, buildings which are on there. Now, if you've got a rústico, like where I live, for example, which has a vivienda on it, okay, so it's got somewhere to live or somewhere which could be turned into a vivienda. If you've got a van and you live on that van, you wouldn't have a problem. If you go to rústico and it hasn't got any sort of vivienda on it, and your plan is to put a mobile home there and just live in something that can be moved on and off because you're legally not allowed to build anything, you won't get registered on just purely rustic land. If you're in what they call urbanizable, which means it's either an urban area which you can build on or is being built or already built, then you wouldn't have a problem if you lived on a van, as long as you owned the land. Might be a bit of extra explanation, but yeah, you shouldn't have a problem.
Cool. Is the Padrón region specific?
Yes, in terms of the nuances, the requirements is very much like the residency. Maybe the odd tick in the box is different somewhere else. The actual requirements generally stay the same in sort of proof of where you're actually going to be living, proof of who you are, but you might find there's regional differences in the nuances of the paperwork, like the ID of the person who owns the property, like what you had, for example. And the biggest regional difference would be the times that it takes the Padrón certificate to come out. Right? So you've got everything from Mijas. They'll give you one, qualify you on the spot, give you a Padrón certificate. Estepona will take 2 weeks. Vélez Malaga might take 4 months, so there's one thing as part of your planning, I suppose, you can do if you're looking at a town, is go and find out how long they actually take to kick out your Padrón, because that could be crucial to things like healthcare registration. Yeah, so a lot of people, if you're living in Mijas, you come over, we can get appointments quick in Malaga. Well, they're ready in October now, but we can get them with planning. Then we can get your Padrón, we can get to the social security, we can get your card, you can go to the doctors. Other areas, we can't get you registered until you got your Padrón. If it's going to take 5 months and we can get your TIE card without the Padrón, but you can't get your Padrón, you might be looking at getting some backup health insurance.
Now, you mentioned earlier about there's different kinds of certificate that you can get. There's the historic one and another one. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so you have the normal Padrón certificate, which is just a normal certificate, Certificado de Empadronamiento, which shows your name and shows where you live. And as long as that'll have a date on the bottom of it, and that is valid within those 90 days after that date. You then have another one, which there's a few versions. There's another one, which is the convivencia, which if you need to prove, okay, that you live together, then this certificate will have a list of everybody who's registered at that address on it and also have the date at the bottom. You can go a step up with both of these certificates and ask for one which is historic. And the historic certificate shows the date of first registration on the Padrón, and not all Padrón certificates show that. Some do, but not all. And the reason you would need that maybe would be for if you're going for a residency as an EU family member, they want to see how long you've been living together at that address. Certainly when you're doing things like bringing your personal items over to going through customs, or if you've driven a car over. So this is one of the things that Lara does a lot. She has to get a historic Padrón for the ITV test and for customs, because they want to know that that person qualifies to bring the vehicle in for change of residency. Another thing to mention, which is something called a volante. Now, volante is a Padrón certificate, but it's more like a Padrón receipt, okay? So if you were to compare a volante to getting an official invoice and what we call a receipt, yeah? So when you would know, being self-employed here, but we have this thing called a factura, which is the official document which proves your VAT and everything. Then you have a factura simplificada, which is, this is a few basic details, but you couldn't use it for the tax office type thing, right? Padrón's the same. You can go, and sometimes they'll give you this document called a volante. Now, the volante is just like a receipt of the registration. Now, a lot of the times it's valid, but for official purposes, we've had earache from both the comisaria, the DGT, the ITVs, which say, no, it can't say volante, it has to say certificado. So if you ever see the word on it, volante, and it's spelled like that, then hand it back and say, no, I want a certificado, because the volantes aren't really worth the paper they're written on.
Very good to know. So any more top tips, anything you've got to say about the Padrón that we haven't said yet?
No, I think that's it. Just remember you don't have to register every 3 months, which is a common misconception. If you do lose your Padrón certificate, don't panic. You can just get another one. When you do register on the Padrón, always make sure you check your details with a fine-tooth comb, because we've seen mistakes on names, NIE numbers, passport numbers, whatever. And it's always advisable, if you got on the Padrón before you had an NIE number, which is the case sometimes of EU residents or people who are looking to live here, especially from the European Union, before they get residency, then once you do get your NIE number, go back to the town hall and ask them to update your details to include the NIE number, because some town halls will use your passport number if you haven't got an NIE number and you're a non-resident. We've seen that many times, but it's always best that ultimately you end up with a Padrón with your NIE number, because that's your ID number in Spain.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out, because I'm sure we got on the Padrón before we'd got everything sorted out. Oh, I don't know, man. You went from INIE quite early on, didn't you? Because you got the power of attorney to go and get that.
I'll tell you what, I could probably tell you.
You got it on your records?
Yeah, I got it on my records. Yeah, I've got it here. I was going to tell you now. She's super good at it.
Go on then.
Have a look. Let's get a good Padrón. Here we go. Oh, Ireland PR. Oh, I'm not going to say it out.
Oh, that's my passport number.
You better go check that out, because the one we got on file from 2021 has got your passport number on it.
Ah, okay.
And you hit the 5-year point on the 7th of December next year.
Next year, yeah. So I've got a bit of time. I'll go. Unfortunately, we've got an English-speaking person in the town hall who can just check everything out for us.
I'm actually just laughing my head off now, because we did use the volante de empadronamiento colectivo for you and doing
Did we?
Actually says, well, I'm doing it, but don't listen, don't do as I do as I say. So no, I didn't say that. No, it was a volante that you gave me, but it had the historic details on it. But volantes, get a certificate, don't get a volante.
Yeah, brilliant. I think I'll go and get. I don't even need a certificate right now. There's nothing I need to prove, but there we go. It's worth checking the details. Okay. So if anybody has any questions, by the way, put them in the comments below. I'm not sure if they come up. I think they come up on Facebook, because this broadcast is going out on Facebook and on YouTube. I've started doing it on both platforms now, and it's not just the one Facebook. It's Facebook page and the private Facebook group. So there you go. So you can join one or both of those, and also make sure you subscribe. Make sure you smash the like button into smithereens, my smashing friends. And yes, subscribe or join or whatever it is, whatever platform you are watching on. And well, that is all we have for you today, except to tell you all about next week's show. And it's one that I've been dropping hints about on the website newsletter for the past few months. I think I mentioned it at the start of the show. My special guest will be John Wolfendale from Ecovida Homes, and he'll be telling you all about how he can help you build your own house here in Spain. And he'll cover the whole process from choosing a location, buying the land, getting permits, right through to the completion of the project. And there is a special offer on just for you two Spain watchers, and I'll tell you all about that during the week on Facebook and on the show. So until then, let's give Chris a big virtual kiss and a hug and say goodbye for now, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time from when this is broadcast. And I will see you, my lovely watchers, on the midweek video at 6 o'clock in the evening on Wednesday. And then, of course, next week, the Saturday show is at the usual time of 10 o'clock in the morning, as always, Spanish time. So peas and fluff, my friends. And I'll leave you all with a message from all of the voices in my head here at U2 Spain. See you soon. Wave goodbye, lads. Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.